Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a big catch up on all the books I've read in the last couple months. So April, May, and I'm also going to include June in here too, even though it's a little early, but it has been a very busy month, so I just want to kind of get everything in. We have several months of books to get through, so let's just buckle up and get started. First book I read in April was The Wedding People by Allison Espach. I actually kind of did this as a reading club, a book club with my friends. So since this was like such a popular book last year, I was really excited to read it. I will say, and everyone says this, please check trigger warnings before going into this because there are some really like heavy topics discussed in here, and I think it's kind of important maybe to have an idea at least before you start reading. Basically, this is about a woman who is at a very low point in her life, and she goes to a hotel, finds out that the entire hotel is booked by a wedding party. There's a wedding happening there, and she basically meets everyone at this wedding. And that's all I'll say. I think it's good to go into this kind of line, but also, like I said, heavy topics are talked about. But I think it also does like a good job of like adding in a lot of humor. Like there were some really funny, it's kind of dark humor at times. It's kind of a weird dichotomy because it's really heavy topics, but it also does have a lightheartedness to it. So I really like this. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like there were a lot of like smaller moments in here that are, it's like really small little moments or scenes that are actually really meaningful and touching. I feel like this is a book where a lot of people like feel seen by this book. I would recommend. Gave it 4 stars. Then I read kind of a different book for me, which is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This was, I feel like it's been marketed recently as like feminist literature, so I was like, this sounds amazing. And it still was, but it's more of a sci-fi book, really, like a kind of post-apocalyptic dystopian kind of book. So it's definitely a different genre than I was expecting. Basically, this is about a woman who has grown up in this bunker, and there are 40 women total, and she and the other women have no idea why they're there. The other women are older than her and remember their lives before, and they have more of a sense of like reality before the bunker, but our main character doesn't. And one day, basically, they are suddenly given an opportunity to leave, and basically goes from there. I don't want to spoil too much and give anything away, but this is definitely just such a different read from what I would normally read. I did end up giving it 4 stars though. It's kind of a book where you are confused a lot of the time, and you end the book having so many questions that aren't answered. But I loved kind of the discussions that can come from this book. I feel like this is a sci-fi book that can absolutely be read from like a feminist perspective. I mean, it's about a woman who literally has never met a man. That's kind of a huge premise of the book. She's never met a man. She only knows women. So can definitely be read from a feminist perspective, but I feel like can also just say a lot about what humanity is, societal norms. I kind of also read it almost as like, what does femininity mean? Like there are just so many questions that can be brought up, and I really enjoyed kind of reading through. I'd like find discussion questions online when I finish this book. Also, Goodreads has some, and like the reviews. So I think if you're reading this, I highly recommend checking those out, because I feel like that's when I really wanted to like deep dive and analyze this book. And I would recommend, but just kind of go in expecting like more of a sci-fi vibe, but it's really short. I flew through this and had my head turning. If that sounds interesting to you, I do recommend it. Next book I read was Alone with You in the Ether by Olive A. Blake. This is my first Olive A. Blake book, and I really loved this. I gave it a 4.5 stars. I think the writing was so beautiful. It was like so poetic, and I loved it. Our main characters are kind of flawed. It is a love story, like it says, it is a love story. Definitely like more literary fiction though, because it's very character based, and our two main characters are very like almost opposite, but that is what brings them together. And I just thought it was really well done. I really liked it. Again, another kind of shorter one that I really like flew through as well. But I just had such a fun time reading this. It's very like, I don't know, to me it felt kind of almost poetic or romantic, and I really loved the writing in this, so I would recommend 4.5 stars for this one. Then I read The Right Move by Liz Tom Ford, which is the second book in the Windy City series. The first book, if you've watched my recent videos, I didn't love. I had quite a few quite a few criticisms on it, but this one was definitely better. I gave it a 3.75 stars, so it wasn't quite a 4. There were still some parts that I felt like were a little cringe. It was a little long, but I loved like the topics that were discussed. We had a lot more, I feel like we had a lot of depth in our characters. Also really loved our male main character. Everyone is obsessed with Ryan Shay, and I understand. There were times when it felt a little like it was giving like billionaire romance, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, this man is just doing absolute most, but I love that. I loved both our main characters a lot in this book, so absolutely will continue the series, and I'm really excited for Caught Up. Hopefully we'll be reading that soon. Next book I read was probably my favorite book out of this whole bunch, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Again, this is my first V.E. Schwab as well, and I almost feel like this was obviously so different, but it had the same kind of poetry and beautiful writing that I thought Alone with You in the Ether had. But this is like my ideal book. This was so beautiful. This story is like beautiful yet tragic. I loved the whole premise of it. I love how it was executed. I am just obsessed with this book. It is a little chunky. It's a little long, and at times I could see how some people might think it's kind of slow, but I was just so curious about Addie's life. It follows her entire like 300 years of living, which I should also probably maybe briefly explain what this book's about for anyone who doesn't know. This is about a woman who in 1714 France makes a deal basically with this like devil that she wants to basically have freedom. She doesn't want to be tied to anybody, and in return she is no longer able to be remembered by anybody. So the minute she meets someone, they forget who she is entirely. Jumps to like present day, like 2014, and she meets someone who remembers her name, and it is just such a gorgeous story. I was so intrigued. I kind of like, it was almost a little bit of a historical vibe, obviously, because I mean, it starts in 1714 and goes all the way through. So I really like that aspect as well, without it being too much. And I'm obsessed. I actually love it. I just think it's beautiful. It was worth every page. I loved the multi-timelines. I loved the whole story, and highly, highly, highly recommend if you haven't read it. This book was just so up my alley. I could ramble about it all day, but definitely recommend if you haven't read it yet. Next book I read was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I read this basically very soon after early, so it was really exciting to read with everybody else. Obviously, everyone kind of has their own opinion on this book. There was definitely a lot of like mixed opinions. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Not my absolute favorite Emily Henry, but I still really enjoyed our story, and I liked our main characters. I really liked their romance. This is definitely a romance, first of all. I loved their dynamic. I do think the pacing was a little off. Like, it did feel kind of rushed and kind of not forced, but it wasn't like, there wasn't as much yearning. I did also like Margaret's story. I thought that was really interesting. However, I kind of wanted a little more from it, which is why I can't really give this a whole 5 stars, but I still really liked it. I think it was a really fun setting and a fun premise, and I just love Emily Henry's writing. Like, I still think this is a really solid book, but probably not like my top tier Emily Henry. So yeah, Great Big Beautiful Life. Next book I read, actually listened to, was Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrand. I did an audiobook for this, and this was my first full audiobook, which I do think kind of affected my experience. It was kind of a learning experience for me as far as like, do I like audiobooks? But I ended up giving it 3 stars. This is more of a thriller by her, thriller murder mystery. And I did like it. It was very dramatic, and I liked all the secrets and stuff, but it just didn't really stick with me. And like I said, that could have been because of like the form I was reading it in. But it was okay. It was good. But it just didn't really like, I was invested in everything, like the characters, but it didn't really stick with me at all. So that's why I'm giving it a 3 stars. The next book I read is Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. Magnolia Parks, I gave like a 3 stars. I'd probably drop it to like a 2.5 in hindsight. This one I'm gonna give a solid 3 too. It was better. I really liked our characters more. I liked the dynamics. Daisy, our main character, and her family are part of like this big kind of like a mafia family in London, so it's higher stakes, and to me that feels really out there, which kind of made everything else going on and the dynamics with the character also, it made sense for it all to be kind of toxic. Their actions made more sense because it already feels far-fetched, so it already feels a little far-fetched to me. So I did like this more. I'm not obsessed with it. I think I might continue the series, maybe out of curiosity, but I'm not obsessed with these books so far. I know people love them so much. I did like this one more. Like I said, I liked our dynamics. I liked our characters. Like, I am confused by their actions, but they make more sense. Or like, it's okay for them to be confused because it's such high stakes. I'm like, okay, no one's gonna be acting right. No one's gonna be acting like, I can't really expect them to act logically, if that makes sense. So those are my thoughts on this book. I may or may not continue the series. I really want to understand. I really want to understand the hype on this. But last book, this is the book I read in June, and it was Reckless by Elsie Silver. I gave this one a 4.5 stars. Something about Elsie Silver's writing is just so comforting to me almost. So I still really like this. Not like my all-time favorite either. I know this is so many people's like top Chestnut Springs book. I think my favorite so far is still Heartless, the second book. This one was good. Whenever I read these, I kind of forget, like, these are pretty spicy books. There's a lot of lust in this book. There's still a lot of romance. It's still very romantic, but I think that kind of threw me off a little bit. Still really liked it. Classic Elsie Silver. There is a trope in here everyone talks about. Not my favorite trope also. Like, I think the trope still threw me off enough where it wasn't like I was obsessed with it, but I did think it was uniquely done. Like, I was not expecting it to go the way it did, so I really liked it. I loved her character arc. Like, I did love our main characters, and I love the character arc that Winter gets and kind of the redemption that she gets, because she's almost like a villain in a way in the first book, so it was nice to see kind of her get her own story, and we see a kind of deeper, different side to her. So I did like it as well. So still really liked it, but it's between probably a 4. Actually, now the more I think about it, it's probably between a 4 and a 4.5. But still, can't go wrong with the Chestnut Springs book in my opinion. So those are all the books that I read the last few months. If you have stuck it out to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you guys all soon, and please remember to give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't. And I hope you guys have a wonderful summer of reading.